For a little over 2 decades, Jak and Daxter has stood the test of time as one of the most iconic platformers in the PlayStation 2 era. A couple of days before embarking on this madman's journey, I was going through my PlayStation library and caught a glimpse of the Dynamic Duos collection of games, and for a second I reminisced about the good times I've had with it. Recently, I have been thoroughly enjoying challenging myself in the games I play. For example, I will play Call of Duty Ghost Extinction solo with only a pistol and sometimes even add additional challenge modifiers. I quickly decided, why don't I apply the same idea to Jak? What's good? It's Saggi, and today we're going to tackle a question certainly the planet has been dying to find the answer for. Can you complete Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, without jumping? Initially, I thought to myself, a platformer with no jumping? Are you insane? Now, I don't have an answer for my waning sanity, but I did begin to piece together what would be the foundation of what I was capable of doing in the game, and how I would go about it without jumping once. First off, I had to determine my mobility options. Instead of figuring out what I could do first, I decided to focus on what was forbidden beforehand. The most obvious restrictions would be that Jak can't jump, double jump, or crouch jump. Jak also has additional movement options such as rolling, roll jumping, and diving. Of these, only rolling was permitted. The roll jump is very clearly a jump, but what about the dive? This is a weird one which will be explored more in the future, but for now, we'll consider it banned. Some of the more obscure restrictions I added were no climbing up ledges, no launch pads, no trampolines, and if I could prevent it, no hopping from grabbing eco. Jak does a similar hop when taking damage, but what do you want me to do? Just beat it hitless? There's one more omission, but we'll get to that in a second. Although I can't jump, Jak still has a plethora of movement tech in his arsenal to assist us on our quest. These primarily include the crouching uppercut, the aerial kick. But Saggi, what about the punching uppercut? Well, personally, I decided to omit the punching uppercut. Why? It's almost the same as a crouching uppercut because it uses X, or cross if you're an uncultured swine. Now, this isn't a no X run, but I wanted to stay as far away from the X button as I could, just for the simple fact that X could make you jump. With all of that out of the way, let's get right into it. First, we get a sweet unskippable cutscene, then we embark on our jumpless run. I immediately have an elevated platform, so already I'm utilizing the crouch uppercut. I get my first power cell and see in the distance scout flies. At this moment, I realize the game doesn't actually tell you some of Jak's capabilities such as the dive, or at least not immediately anyways. I neglected to use the dive and found the uppercutting works, so no need to dive right now. I continue and encounter blue eco and question if the eco hop is acceptable. I don't completely omit the hop, but I try to grab it normally by attacking it or utilizing it in a way that would give me an advantage. All of the ecos share this characteristic, including getting 50 eco orbs when you get an additional heart. I make it to the blue eco door, grab the power cell, and come across one of my first obstacles. Now, you're supposed to jump off this ledge onto these floating platforms, but since we lack a brain, we won't be. Instead, I spent a couple of minutes bumbling around the area, and when coming really close to a ledge while in water, I soon noticed that sometimes Jak's collision can go a bit bonkers. We use this to manipulate Jak onto solid ground and perform a crouch uppercut to move forward. I make a couple of routine leaps and then come across what I thought would be the end of the run already. There are 2 platforms that are supposed to be jumped onto to reach the top of a platform, but the uppercut leaves me on a ledge grabbing it, and remember, I can't pull myself up because it's considered a jump. So I move around the rocks a bit, trying to find collision that could be used to my advantage to crouch uppercut upward. I finally find a good position to uppercut off the side of the rock with, while it bounces me in a weird direction. I make it to the top and decided I didn't take long enough and immediately fall back off the rock. Luckily, I got the timing down, and by this point it didn't take too long to get back to the top of it, and I collect my final power cell and geyser rock. We make our way through the portal, cutscene, and head to Sentinel Beach after talking to some townsfolk, of course. I start to take collecting precursor orbs a bit more seriously as I start to foreshadow a couple of problems. I open the green eco vents, get my power cell, head over to the beach and grab a second one. I make sure to disturb the gulls, grab some outlying orbs, and attempt to grab some scout flies. I try a couple of times, but can't seem to reach them, so I move on. I get wet and try to choke a bird that swallowed my power cell, but sadly, there's no way to get up there without some form of jumping. The only other way I can get up there is with launch pads, which are forbidden. There's another power cell that the launch pads lead me to as well, but again, forbidden. So I make my way to the Flood egg, grab my power cell, and fail at platforming a bit. I check my progress after getting my next power cell and take note as of what will be obtainable, which are currently 3. Let's hope this trend doesn't continue. With more power cells available, I head to Sandover Village, herd some cattle, and venture onto the jungle. I tread into the jungle and come across a trampoline. Oddly enough, if you crouch uppercut onto one, you won't bounce, but I won't be using them how they were intended to be used. I grab some orbs, fail some platforming, and make my way to yet another obstacle. When you make your way to the tower, you'll come across 2 paths. One has a trampoline, the other has a platform activated by eco. Can you guess which route I take? If you guessed neither, you're correct. You see, when you go up the floating eco platforms, you will eventually come across our kryptonite, a launch pad. So fuck that, I continue elsewhere by beginning to light up the eco towers. I collect Scoutfly number 6 and realize I'm missing one naturally. Remember the trampoline path in the tower? Yeah, there was a reason for it. I guess no 7th Scoutfly for me. I plan on going to Misty Island, so I play around with the fishermen. Once I'm finished, I connect the final eco tower, business as usual, and on to the next stage. On my way to the boat, I get robbed by some town folk in exchange for power cells and then head to Misty Island. I need 20 power cells to progress the game, but since we missed quite a few, to the island we go. We grab the muse after some abysmal platforming and I immediately softlock myself. In these mud craters, you can't crouch, so I'm unable to leave this shithole. This happens a few times actually. Luckily, I can just save and load with minimal consequence. I make my way through the ruins and grab my next cell. I make it past the part that I was for sure would be annoying without jumping, but it was much easier than I imagined. The next power cell acquired, and now I'm introduced to zoomers. The zoomer, like Jak, also has the ability to jump, which we will ultimately neglect. 2 power cells are obtained here, with the gameplay being generally the same as usual. I then begin to search for scout flies I missed. I reach power cell 20, but instead of heading to Fire Canyon, I waste my time trying to get this time-restricted power cell. After admitting defeat, I head to Fire Canyon and am reminded that staying off the ground will keep me cool, but I can't jump, so I fail the first go around, and the second. I don't jump and avoid enemies because they make you hop in the air. This one is down to the wire, but with patience and a little skill, it's possible. I go back and get my last scout fly, and that does it for Fire Canyon. I enter Rock Village and I head straight for the precursor with some cells. I get both and talk to the town, where I instantly try to get into one of the most difficult areas of the game without jumping. Well, for me at least. To access this area, you would normally jump, but under our circumstances, we have to do what is known as a boosted uppercut. To put it briefly, when Jak is standing on the ledge of a platform, you can do some shenanigans with his feet collision, which allow him to do uppercuts that shoot him farther than normal. Since I'm not a Jak master, I skip this and head to the Precursor Basin. This area is almost the same as it would be normally, except we are neglecting to jump. Naturally, this will cause me some ass pain while I try against some of these cells, and completely negate me from collecting 2 of the power cells. One of the ring challenges requires me to hop, and one is just floating in the air, also requiring me to, you guess it, hop. I circle back to the village, collect some powered cells from the townsfolk, I then proceed to fail at platforming once more and collect the final scout fly of the area, onto another difficult area. Up until now, most levels have been pretty lax and have only had a few missables, if any. I now present the first giant pain in my ass. I make my way through the swamp normally until I come across an obstructive pole, but I manage to damage boost past it. I then continue into the level, only to come across yet another pole, same setup with more vines. The problem here though is damage boosting past requires a little bit more work. I managed to get across by utilizing yellow eco and damage boosting, but what I would see next would absolutely crush me. I hit a roadblock which isn't traversable, at least by conventional means. I admit defeat and make my way back to the beginning of the level. At this point I only had collected one power cell in the swamp, and I started to look through what cells I could still collect. I then remember that I still haven't visited the Lost Precursor City, the inaccessible level. I decide to spend around 20 minutes attempting to get into it, but fail miserably. This is the point where I needed to do more research in order to proceed due to my lack of knowledge. After accruing more knowledge, I head back to the swamp and start grinding, and yes, I mean grind. This gap is definitely where the run gets real. Huge difficulty spike. I almost get in here, but nab the ledge. I keep going and nail the leap within the next 2 minutes. You know what nailed me though? This fucking checkpoint. If I don't make this jump, I get sent back to the beginning of the level. Luckily, my gaming prowess pulled me through and I made it back shortly after. Sadly, I made the same mistake by missing the same jump, not saving my checkpoint, and thus restarting me yet again from the beginning. Did I forget to say this was a grind? By this point, I'm getting the hang of the boosted uppercuts, and it takes me a few more tries to get back up there the next time. I skip the power cell and opt to complete the jumps to solidify the checkpoint. Can you guess what the fuck happens next? Yup, back here again. Remember when I said I was getting the hang of this shit? Yeah, I proceed to take another 20 minutes to get this boosted uppercut until... Now, what I was supposed to do was after the first jump was to turn back and die from the tar, the mud, whatever this shit is. Anyways, dying this way saved the checkpoint apparently. Finally, I get my power cell. After some more platforming, we can finally start collecting power cells. I play with the farmer and nab my power cell. I keep moving forward to some surprisingly easy platforming compared to what I just went through into my next cell. What I didn't realize is that this area that I'm at, I'm pretty sure loops back to the area that I couldn't traverse beforehand. What does this mean? Well, I've essentially gone through the level in its entirety, effectively meaning no more power cells under my current crushes. The rest of the cells and scout flies are locked behind launch pads. Great, now I get to run back through this wondrous level with no jumping. It's not even that difficult to be honest, it's just really tedious. With that out of the way, I head back to finish the Precursor Basin. Nothing too spectacular here again, just collecting power cells. A couple notable power cells that were missed are the ring challenge and this one off this cliff, all because I can't hop. This is it for the basin, so it's on to the next venture. Due to my lack of power cells and my inability to enter the Lost Precursor City, I need to backtrack a bit for some cells. I make my way to the Precursor statue in Sandover Village, but I don't have enough orbs to get both, which is a shame because of how long it took me to get over there with all these boosted uppercuts. I head to the Forbidden Forest where I have one of the first adjustments in the run in terms of what I'm capable of doing. Well, two, depending on how you look at it, whatever. I'm talking about diving and trampolines. So if you remember, I banned trampolines. The primary reason was that I felt like it's still a form of jumping, more technically speaking, because he uses his leg in a jumping fashion. And yes, that is a valid reason, don't at me. What does this have to do with anything though? Well, you might remember me mentioning that the dive is a weird addition to the arsenal. Well, this is one of those things that makes it so, for the run at least. So uppercutting onto a trampoline allows you to stand onto it, which isn't necessarily helpful, but you know an alternate way of activating it? Why yes, by diving onto it. This way, he uses his head to elevate himself and not his legs, thus not making the jump. Don't argue with me, argue with your mama. I get my cell, collect the cell I missed, and head to the next area. I start to weigh my options as of which is more feasible, collecting cells or orbs to proceed. I prioritize cells, but still visit some of the previous levels to get any of the orbs that I feel like I missed. At Sentinel Beach, I was unable to grab the remaining scout flies and nab a cell. Next is Misty Island. All I needed was this one power cell that was giving me trouble earlier, but my gaming prowess was greater. I make my way back via boat and come across the next alteration to the run I needed to make. At this point, I'm running out of options. Remember the dive? Remember how at the beginning of the video I labeled it as a weird action? Well, the dive has an extended version that allows Jak to launch higher into the air. I didn't outright say it here, but I banned it for the fact that it uses the X button. And yes, we all know that action is associated with jumping. Considering that this is a personal restriction rather than a logical one, I opt to lift the omission of the extended dive. It does make me feel better though that the controls consider it an attack even with the extension, so that helps. With my newfound ability, I get the last scout fly for Sandover Village, and I get another cell and decide it's time to take on Claw. Should be interesting. Talk to Bay, and make my way up to the hillside, which to my knowledge isn't possible without the extended dive, might I add. Anywho, this is a moment I had been anticipating considering the nature of the battle. As you could expect, the antagonist of this conflict isn't really Claw, but the platforming. First try I get close and fumble the attempt. Second try goes great. So great in fact that I believe the boss battle was still going. I get my power cell and keep it moving. Well, not really. I check Twitch for 2 seconds and manage to fail the zoomer section automatically. I get 2 power cells from this part and continue my journey. I enter the area and talk to the big bads and grab a power cell from the miners because I can afford one. I get the Scoutfly cell and enter the spider cave. Ew. I was expecting this level to be a headache, but in all honesty, it's more annoying than difficult. With all the moving platforms and jumping to traverse, this level becomes a chore, if anything else. Sadly, and yet again, I have to miss cells due to my no jumping limitation. There are definitely sections I believe would be a pain, but just weren't. But we'll be back. Now, onto one of my favorite levels with one of the best soundtracks in the game, an absolute banger. First, I have to boost uppercut past a daunting crevice before I can really start the stage. I make my way through the level, grabbing up the easy cells. Now normally, I would play through this stage and have 0 issues, but when the fortress gate didn't open, I realized I forgot how to fucking open it. Avid players will remember how our feathered friend resides here, but it's unusable due to it only being able to traverse its section by jumping. I try boost uppercutting across the platforms that arise, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible, even if I executed the uppercuts perfectly. Turns out, I didn't forget how to open the gate, it's just locked behind the supreme execution of these said boosted uppercuts. Well, without the gate being open, I can't get enough cells. Run over. Mission failed. Just kidding, there's an alternate route. So if you drop down here from the gate, you will come across a familiar path. This second drop is actually a part of the Flood course, leading to the activating mechanism for the gate. With a bit of precision, you can finagle your way onto the platform below and open the gate. It was a celebratory moment opening the gate, but once in, I was unable to make any progress due to the fact that I suck, for lack of better words, so I move on for now. I proceed to spend 10 minutes on this dreadful obstacle course with slippery floors, just great for a no jumping run. I come through this path through the back way, which requires a boosted uppercut, and get another easy sill. Now all that's left is the fortress, so I head back. I perfect my diving technique and reach the top of this post, which allows me to get some much needed orbs below. I also collect the 6th scout fly. My final venture is to get the final scout fly atop a post with another precise extended dive. Luckily, I nailed the dive within a timely manner and get the next scout fly and cell. There's one more power cell left, but as far as I can see, it's impossible to get it with my current limitations. I head back to the miners for some easy power cells, exhausting my precursor orbs 20 under the needed amount to get another from the precursor statue. Damn it. I head through the mountain pass to get this power cell now accessible from me activating the yellow eco in the snowy mountain. I take a moment to grasp my current situation. I need to go back through levels again, but this time to collect more orbs for some more cells. I have 68 here, but I need 72. One will be available after I get 20 more orbs, but what will I do about the other 3? Underestimating just how many cells I would miss in this run, I neglected to put enough care into collecting orbs, so I go back and try and collect as many as possible to get my extra 3 power cells. I actually run out of options here, with my only possible hope being the lost precursor city. Back against the wall, with the run on the brink of its end, I resort to attempting the boosted uppercut into the city, again and again and again, until I'm getting the fucking boost off of this shit. I'm gonna wait for it to be upright. Oh shit! Oh shit! Don't fuck this up. Oh shit! This is big. Oh shit! Oh fuck! Let's go in. With access to the precursor city, my hopes for completion start to make their way back into existence. But boy, oh boy, was this excitement cut short. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the first nightmare of the run. Yes, the first. Here I was thinking Boggy Swamp was bad. This level is literally the gauntlet of no jumping. It starts innocent enough with moving, floating platforms to be traversed. I opt to go for the scout flies and orbs just in case I don't get enough cells here. Now immediately after the first room, we have a roadblock. There's a nice distance that needs to be crossed over this body of water. It looks as though it can be traversed with a boosted uppercut, but after at least 30 tries, I really start to think this may be impossible. I no shit spend an hour failing until I decide to pick it up the next day. The next day, I do just that. I keep at it, but eventually give up the boosted uppercut and go for a different strat. This is one of the most precise actions in the run. No worries, right? The idea is to get Jak in the water, restand him, and uppercut from the water into the platform, all while dealing with the fluctuating water levels and damage. The damage would be a blessing in disguise if I actually wanted to restart this section when falling in, but enough complaints. I put my gaming prowess to work and miraculously make it. The next room looks extremely discouraging to a non-jumper, but actually isn't too bad with enough effort. Right after this room, the difficulty rears its ugly head yet again. We got another impassable gap. Well, it's a split path with the same gap, but I was unsure if I could get back over with ease from the left path, so I go for the right. Plus, it's the way to progress, so right it is. This right path requires a boosted uppercut, then you have to crouch uppercut from a restand in the water. What does all of that mean? Just know it's a pain in my sack. Don't forget the trial and error of the fluctuating water and damage, but I managed to make it past, despite this one, in my opinion, being more difficult than the first one. But to each his own. I immediately come down the sliding section and die to save the checkpoint. I go for the power cell, but the path to the cell is actually pretty tricky and requires some tight timing and rolling into crouching uppercuts for mobility, because of course this is time. But fuck that, I get the cell anyway and keep moving forward. Despite its difficulty and my lack of ability to convey just how difficult this can get, I actually thoroughly enjoyed this level without jumping. To be honest, it really started to make me appreciate this run. This entire time, I've been challenged to conjure jumping alternatives to proceed through the game, but it's at this level where I look back on how fun it all was. But enough banter. I come down the sliding part and need to activate these mechanisms to leave. Now I would proceed, but there is a third pit of water at this point. I'm thinking, fuck that. I got enough cells so I can get the fuck out of here. There's a jump pad right at the beginning of the dark eco room anyway, so if I wanted to go to that room, I would have to turn around regardless. So I emerge from the depths and I get my cell. With enough power cells at this point, I make my way to the lava tube, and it's the most underwhelming of the 3 zoomer sections. I don't even get close to combusting, even without the hop. Now that we're past most of the game, it's time to enter the final gauntlet and also to address the elephant in the room. Up until now, I've conquered obstacle after obstacle, but it's at this point where the run takes a turn for the worse. So there are 4 sages in this room that need to be rescued, each having their own trials to conquer to save them. Well, maybe not Samo so much, but you get the gist. One of these paths has fallen floors, one of these paths is just the game's interpretation of hell. But can you guess what the fucking third path has? It has not 1, not 2, not 3, but like 13 fucking jump pads over an abyss of instant death with no way to manipulate Jak over the chasm. How could I not remember this room when contemplating this run's creation? It's quite literally a fuck you yelled directly into both of my ears. You can't skip any of these in order to progress the game, so I'm between a rock and a hard place. Reluctant to do so, I traverse the room via launchpad. Instead of counting how many jumps I made, I'll just put how many sections require some. I get out of that piece of shit room to be greeted with some intense platforming bullshit. To the right, there are some spinning half-circle platforms that need to be timed. A platform below has a button that opens a singular stretch of fallen platforms. Both of these suck, but I have to keep moving forward. The falling platform path is damn near impossible, so I eventually get through by going the right path. Only after 20 minutes, of course. With the yellow sage saved, I set my crosshairs on the red sage, but on arrival, I can't manage to cross this gap. It's like you can get really close to it, but not get to the platform. So I move on to the second nightmare of the run, and arguably worse than the Precursor City. Very execution heavy, and it's back-to-back ass-clenching moments. You got your moving platforms, your boosted uppercuts, spinning platforms, extended dives, the works. After spending an hour and a half failing, I call it a day to contemplate my next course of action and my life choices. I come back for more pain, and I come up with the only solution available to me at this point. I didn't want to spend another hour trying the blue sage, so red sage it is. But remember, we can't cross this gap. The solution? Make our third and final adjustment to the run. I, without any choice that I could find, resort to permitting one last action, which is none other than the punching uppercut. Now, this was only banned because I correlate the use of the X button being just as equal to a jump as a jump. But again, this isn't a no X run, just a no jumping run. This section may not even be possible without it, so it would have been added eventually. Let's proceed, shall we? So we make our way through some of our routine rotating platforms and come upon the first challenge, the falling floors. You're supposed to jump across these as they fall, but you know what our angle is. It's actually possible to bypass this part with a well-executed boosted uppercut from the ledge into a kick, but more on that mechanic later. I know this part after about 10 minutes, beat the shit out of some babies, and I'm immediately punished for it afterward. Yeah, back to the floor puzzle. These checkpoints are pretty brutal. I make short work of the fallen floors, even sneaking a boosted uppercut in. The babies don't spawn anymore, but I'm still punished for whooping their ass earlier. God damn it. One more time. Floors, rotating platforms, red sage. Finally. That took some doing, but was much more entertaining than the blue sage gauntlet. Power cells are pretty much useless for progressing, but we still have 2 more we can collect in this room. Now to our true final challenge. Let me give you a rundown of this room. First, you have to make 2 uppercuts across these platforms. Nothing too difficult. Come up onto this rotating box. Finally, a platform without a circumference. Make another simple leap to this moving platform, not super difficult with the right timing. Now things get a bit interesting. Now from this moving shit, I have to punch uppercut to the next rotating box, but I won't actually make it to the top. Here, I'll actually use my inability to climb ledges to my advantage. There's no need to jump on top of the box. Just wait until it spins to the other side and you can drop down. Boom. Next, there's a boosted uppercut. At this point, I'm pretty confident in my boosted uppercuts and can get this almost every time. Now it ramps up a bit. From this rotating platform, we need to make a boosted to the moving platform. And I'm so tired of saying platform, but it's the most accurate and I don't feel like looking up any other synonyms. The biggest problem here is getting to positioning, since you're technically constantly moving. Luckily, we can bring some ease to the execution by using our punching uppercut. Now, it is in this section where I accidentally discovered one of the greatest allies to this run that I neglected to use due to ignorance. The technique I found, and indeed needed to be looked up, was the extended uppercut. What's an extended uppercut? Well, it's really similar to a boosted, except it includes a punch off a ledge instead of waiting on positioning Jak's feet, and has a kick at the end. If the punch, uppercut, into kick buttons are pressed in the right sequence, you can see yourself flying great distances. I feel like it's taken forever to explain this, so let's just keep going. It's much easier to show anyway. With this addition, I can make it onto the moving platform and off of it. This next part is pretty precise, but I wouldn't necessarily call it difficult. The platforms not only float, but they rock to and fro, bounce ever so slightly up and down, and are just close enough to make it with uppercuts. So close in fact that I kept grabbing a damn ledge. After some trial and error, I demolished this part and come upon the home stretch. Of course, after 20 minutes of attempts, I fucked this up and grab a ledge. Another 20 minutes pass and I die a little inside. I make it. I made sure to make it here at full health to tank the flame damage and avoid making more leaps. Boom. With all the bullshit out the way, we can make our way to Golem Maya. I make my way up some suspiciously high platforms that lead into the half circle rotating shit. Nothing compared to what I just endured. Now I have to traverse these weird circulating platforms. They rotate in opposite directions of each other, so launching in the air very clearly messes up your momentum, but it just takes some timing to nail the uppercuts. I get the last scout fly and proceed to the final challenge, if you want to call it that. I save Samos, the big bads talk shit to me, and I take the elevator ride to the final battle. Now you're probably wondering why the launch pad counter is still there. Well, there's a huge oversight when coming into this run, I must admit. First, the Blue Sage's room, and now the final boss. You see, the boss must be damaged with yellow eco, but after each phase, the boss shoots a bomb into the arena. A bomb that will insta-kill you. I think you see where this is going. So yet again, my plans are thwarted by the infamous launch pad. I did die a couple times on this battle, but it isn't too difficult. The lack of jumping is naturally the issue. This run gave me a newfound appreciation for Jak and Daxter, and I'm glad I came back to it to challenge the devs' intentions. Despite the obstacles, this was indeed an interesting and enjoyable run. But you're not here for how I feel, you're here for the answer to an age-old question. Can you beat Jak and Daxter without jumping? The answer? Well, my definitive answer would be no. From the very beginning, this was meant to be a no jumping run, but the launch pad put that idea in the dirt. I will say this, if you don't consider activating launch pads as a jump, then yes, it is possible to complete it with no jumping. I'd also like to mention, yes, I'm aware that you can skip the Golem Maya section and skip right to the boss, but one, it can only be done in the PAL versions of the game, and two, I'm playing the remastered collection version on the PS4. I'm also aware of the various skips and glitches, but I wanted to make it through the game without skipping or glitching anything. This video took me much longer to make than I was anticipating. Sometimes life gets in the way, happens to the best of us. Even with the month and a half of production time, I thoroughly enjoyed this challenge and I hope to do more in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video, so tell me, what game would you want to see me challenge next? What challenge should it be? Leave a comment below and I'll read it, I promise. If you want to see me play live, follow me on Twitch at Saggi Daddis. If you missed the live gameplay, I will start posting my VODs on Patreon. Same name, Saggi Daddis. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. I'm Saggi and I'm also out. Shout out to other players in the Jak community that made this run possible. Without some of the more technical videos, this run may not have been possible, so go check them out as well. After the monumental success of their first entry, Jak and Daxter would see themselves get another stab at the limelight, and thus Jak 2 was born, or Jak 2 Renegade. And with a sequel comes updates. Remember Eco? Fuck that. We use guns now. Remember all that walking? Out with the O and in with the vehicles. Remember checkpoints? Fuck those too. Who needs them? With all the neat additions, however, there are bound to be new obstacles waiting to be tackled. What's good? It's Saggi, and I'm here to answer the age-old question. Can you beat Jak 2 without jumping? Let's lay down some restrictions. Jak's movement is relatively unchanged from the first game, to the point where the same techniques can be utilized. With that being said, there will be no jumping, no double jump, no crouch jump, no roll jump. Now I'll explain the limited list. All of these actions fall into a gray area and aren't necessarily jumps, but I consider them to be. I will avoid these, but will use them if there's absolutely no other choice. These actions being climbing ledges, vaulting poles, jetboard mounting, entering vehicles, vehicle jumping. Last but not least, we have the permitted list. In Jak 1, the movement tech was slowly introduced as they were needed, but in this game, it'll all be implemented immediately. I'm referring to the uppercut, the punching uppercut, aerial spin kicks, the dive, and extended dive. With the rules laid out for us, let's get right into it. The crew takes that ominous structure at the beginning of the first game and they fuck with it, opening a time rift that they proceed to shoot themselves into in a panic. They're all separated and Jak is in prison for 2 years, being a test subject to Dark Eco. Daxter meets us, we bust out, and now it's time to break out of prison. We start the run, but not too long after, one of the tallest ledges in the game is presented to us. And that's no exaggeration. This wall is one of the tallest obstacles in the game, but luckily there is a way to bypass it. Just come over to this pole, extended dive, you're able to just barely make it. No time for jubilation because boom, yet another problem. This stage is a worse obstacle course than Geyser Rock and Jak 1. Although a better comparison would be the Citadel, I suppose. There are two options here: fall off the pole or do a ledge grab. Well, fuck all of that shit. Make your way up to the top with an extended dive and come over to the edge, and you can make your way over to the ledge with an uppercut. Getting a punching uppercut is extra credit. I'm encouraged to roll jump here, but naturally I disobey and uppercut my ass over. We get this cool ass sequence where the guards are shooting from the floor below. I didn't know you could be damaged here and thought the bullets were just for show because I've never been hit here. I was proven wrong this day, twice. We make our way to the final room, and of course there's one last fuck you before I make my jumpless escape. When coming off of this slide, you automatically jump from the slide. This isn't up for debate. You can try and dive or kick, but there's a delay right after the forced jump that prevents the player from taking actions for a brief moment. I couldn't find a way to cross the barrier, but remember that limited list? Well, part of that list includes climbing ledges. One ledge specifically. If we uppercut onto this wheel in the room before the slide, we can briefly stand on it and uppercut again onto this pipe. We will then uppercut once more and grab up top this ledge. Now, in the direction of the slide, we want to uppercut into the void, but into the pool of the water near our goal. Swim around to this part of the wall and force your way in, which another pipe will meet you. Luckily for us, the water is fluctuating, so wait for the water to drop low enough so that you can perform a punching uppercut onto the pipe. We then finish as normal. We dispatch a couple guards and we head to the friendly underground member, Torn. We're instructed to retrieve a banner to prove ourselves, and it's here where we run into our first roadblock. To traverse the tower, Jak is supposed to do some simple platforming, which includes vaulting some poles, but as you know, we'll be restricting the uses of poles unless necessary, which means we'll be subjected to only the uppercut. I took around an hour to close the single gap alone. With the first one, at least there was solid ground to connect with. Here, however, once you land over to the other side, you have to quickly make your way to the next two with punching uppercuts. I made it across a few times with the platforms giving me grief. One time, I made it but accidentally jumped, invalidating the progress. But many of the attempts either result in a ledge grab, a pole grab, or a punch that falls a bit too closely to the death plane. Despite the odds being stacked here, I managed to get past this difficulty spike and proceed with the challenge. Although there is no jumping, this level is relatively unchanged. The obstacles weren't difficult enough to pose too much of a threat, if any at all. Moving on. Now I know I essentially said that the previous level had nothing noteworthy of mentioning. However, I'm starting to believe that was a break for what is to come. In the next mission, Jak has to destroy an ammo dump, and to start the mission off, you get chased by a fucking tank. A reverse crash chase sequence? I see you, Naughty Dog. Cool reference aside, this stage used to give me nightmares as a kid, and that same feeling starts to creep back now that jumping has been subtracted. You can make it through this beginning part easily enough, as long as you're paying attention to the tank's targeting, but it gets somewhat funky. Soon after the stage has begun, the tank will break through a wall, continuing to chase you while you have to avoid turrets waiting for you to fall into their line of sight. This wouldn't be an issue if you were jumping, but alas, the power of masochism is greater. After 5 minutes of attempts, I waddle my way to the end of the path, which should have realistically only took 20 seconds. But oh no, that's not all. Of course the fuck not. You get to the end of the path, only it's not the end of the path. And the best part, the only way to progress is to use a pole to vault to the other area. So now you're stuck between a pole and a tank trying to annihilate you. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, while attempting to punch uppercut past the pole, I ended up falling through this crack in the wall, which led to the other side. Immediately after, I was greeted with a short camera transition showing the tank's advance through a wall, meeting me in the same room. Now this sequence is normal, how I activate it is not, and I didn't know this could be triggered in this manner until now. I still have to get to the top of the platform in this room, but at least the tank gunner isn't blasting the entirety of the time. I keep going and see that this gap is similar to the tower a couple missions back, where I have to use a boosted uppercut under the pole. I spend some time here and I nail it, but soon after I bring shame upon my family name by being careless. All of that pain paid off though, because in less than a minute I was back to where I was. Cause I'm a god gamer, bitch. We move onward through rotating machines, followed by a platforming room filled with guards. The room is split by walls that cut off your path and pits of death. This variation of the guard don't shoot, so we just continue through being cautious of the moving floors above that. One final push towards the end and it's business as usual. The final part of the stage plays primarily the same, except where I would normally be roll jumping, I'm instead punching. This next mission has essentially no change to it, but as you can see, a vehicle is mandatory to complete this mission. It isn't even timed. We have to deliver a package, but it's stuck to the zoomer for whatever reason, instead of it being in our inventory like, say, a security pass. I say it's a minor inconvenience, but it has to be done. No biggie. I raced through the red sector and finished relatively unscathed. Oh yeah, so to add an extra fuck you to this mission, it automatically forces you to jump off the vehicle. Sadly, this won't be the only time that this occurrence will pass, but considering it doesn't give me an advantage and it was just added by the dev to give some extra flair, it's acceptable. We're awarded a weapon, the scatter gun, and the next mission teaches you the basics. This has nothing to do with jumping, so nothing noteworthy here changes. Now we get to see some real action. We head to the city outskirts and are tasked with helping Sig take care of some fearsome metalheads. We clear the room filled with a collection of adversaries, but they fall all the same. This is a platformer after all, so we're back putting those punch uppercuts to use. These weird ass pistons for whatever reason slid me up a bit, but everything is fine. Sig blows up a giant tank, which can actually kill you if you don't get behind him like he says, which is the level of detail in games I live for. We continue across a bridge and I'm tasked with bringing the rest of it down, as it is elevated. I believe you're intended to grab the ledge of the bridge to bring it down, but I just super dive to the top of it and stand on it, and that's enough to activate it. Now remember we had to sit and wait for Sig to charge his peacemaker to destroy that tanker? Well, in a way, it was a demonstration of what was to come. Instead of waiting on him to blow some metal shit up, we have to defend him so he can blow some metal heads up. We've been taking out metal heads thus far, but these are the ones we're here for. I make for sure that Sig gets his spark and he lets her fly. We come down from the bridge to the beach, and of course we have some enemies waiting for their demise. We remove them from the area and set up for the next trophy kill. Sig starts to charge and these bitches start jumping out of the water. Luckily they're uniform in their maneuver and line up for heaven's gates. Sig uses his charge shot to dispatch the spider gunner. We come upon another bridge, and just like the previous one, this one has a part that needs to be let down as well. Also, I was getting my ass handed to me during this mission, and it was constantly one hit away, so that was fun. We come upon the next big bad and defend my guy once more. Side note, if Sig happens to be damaged while charging, he will smack the aggressor back, but will lose some charge in the process, so don't let him get hit. Sig shoots out a PK Thunder, and we keep it moving. I was following our guy, but ended up missing my jump. When I reunited with Sig, he was getting jumped, but my boy was holding his own. I cover his ass, and I let him rip his electro ball into another great terror. We continue forward, and are ambushed by metalheads, of course. It's here where Sig pulls off the sickest anti-air I've seen, and literally 5 seconds later, he immediately disappoints me by jamming his gun. So now I have to fend off the fiends while he fixes his janky ass Nerf rifle. He gets up and is shooting once more, and we clear out the rest of the enemies. We reach our final spider, and it's business as usual. I take out the lizard bitches, and Sig sends one last goodbye to the no good doer. I make my way down to the sewers on Crew's request to destroy some sentries. By the way, the locations tend to be far as fuck from each other, and I'm generally just punching my way to the objectives, opting out of getting on vehicles to avoid the jumping animation. Anywho, I slay some shit, but I accidentally jump and choose to penalize myself by restarting the mission. It was a case of the game eating my inputs, but whatever. I rerun through the first tunnel and come up against the first turret of the mission. I make sure not to take damage from his fire by utilizing Jak's punch to essentially dash. I take it out and instantly fuck myself. There's no way out of the water other than jumping out of it, so that's a reset. I run through this shit again, and again I have the same damn problem. Only this time I did position myself awkward enough to throw off the trajectory of my uppercut, sending me careening to the side of the vent I need to be on. I need to be much more cautious of my actions, as you can see. Whack, whack, no slip up. I take out the lizards and get some metalhead action. They like to play in the dark in this level. The next turret is posted across the winding, narrow bridge of sorts. Since I don't have room to move side to side without falling, I use the punch uppercut to give me enough time to reach the piece of shit before it blows my ass off. Around the next corner is a room full of metal bitches, which I'm positively certain the devs intend us to use the dark bomb for. But for one, that requires jumping, and two, I didn't acquire it. I use Dart Jak anyways to clear the room, and I run into an unexpected roadblock. This ledge is deceptively high and doesn't seem to be reachable, but if you can ever so slightly raise Jak's elevation, you'll be able to super dive high enough to get a foot at the top. Right after that, some more small fries and something a bit larger. You should already know that the platform is always our biggest threat. Remember where I slipped up twice at the beginning? Well, the vents are back, but this time they put the fucking turret on the other side. I don't let that deter me, and I just focus on precision and accuracy and my punch uppercuts. I don't want to land weird and risk flinging in an odd direction, and I want to make sure I time the uppercuts so I'm outpacing the turret, but also not on the verge of doing accidental boosted. I make it to the other side, making it look so sweet, and destroy the penultimate turret. We're now upon the final turret, and it isn't as daunting as the previous ones. It's almost identical to the last one, except platforms are wider. So we can punch to the other side to avoid the turret's fire, and uppercut to close the gaps. Boom, she's out of there. For our efforts, we're awarded our trusty blaster mod, a fan favorite for sure. Just like the scatter gun, the blaster plays out all the same. Crew, yet again, is connected to a delivery mission. But this one is timed, and I guess it isn't really a delivery mission. It's just a race against the clock. Another mission that practically forces you to use the zoomer with how strict the time limit is. I'm glad I'm already familiar with a good portion of the game's map already. I can only imagine being thrown to this mission to basically try and navigate through the new territory while being timed. But then again, I don't recall this mission giving me trouble when I was younger, so it probably isn't that bad, right? I made it with around 20 or so seconds left to spare, just to give an idea how much a zoomer is needed, as well as knowing the map's layout. Sure, you're given a mini-map, but there's no trail, just a jumpy ass icon that can 100% send you in the wrong direction if you use it to find your way. Everything from wild maneuvers in prison to crazy poles in Dead Town couldn't have prepared me for this. We're given a mission 2 feet across from us, the jetboard course. Now you would think that the course is the problem, but we'll get to that. The real shitter here is the second action after equipping the jetboard is to jump. Jump, press X. That's it. That's all. It's just sitting there, mocking my very soul. For almost half an hour, I tried to come up with ways to pick up the jetboard and leave without having to jump with it, but with these attempts I fail miserably. But I was given a hint that would be useful in the future. I abandon this for now and proceed to other outstanding missions. We punch our way to the power station and warp to the strip mines to rescue Vin, an important tech specialist of the underground. The stage plays the same up until the final section, where of course there's some platforming, but nothing crazy. I just make sure to kill any flying metalheads beforehand so I don't have to hassle with dodging their fire and punching uppercuts to the moving crane shit. They bring a few more of the flying fuckers out to play, but they get swatted like the brothers before them.
I almost fuck it up at the very end, but I save it and it looks organic. I secure Vin and start up some more shit because the game literally doesn't give me an option. Here, we enter the eco mining operation and our objective is simple. Destroy the dark eco eggs attached to the various locations. This of course isn't done with your own weapons, but with a turret that naturally overheats. We slay a few dark creatures and without fail, another platforming challenge. This lever here lifts this shit here and you're supposed to you know what. But you know what? Fuck that. I super dive and it works just as good to get me there. I just don't get to travel far. High, but not far. Not too far behind that lever, there's yet another one, and this one is accompanied by some pals. I shoot those bastards down and cross the gap as I did before. I'm really within another turret to destroy metal babies, and did I mention I get to enjoy the luxury of these flying metal bitches too? All jokes aside, they're not too much of a threat, and I destroy the eggs, revealing my next path. Right after I kill one of these Centurions, more platforming is presented to us, and at the very end of the segment, I'm startled by some metal heads and jump. I decide it's best to reset to keep the spirit of the run alive. This was practically a dodge after all. This death sent me back to the beginning of the stage, but what's strange about this is you keep the progress of eggs you've destroyed, but not your position. Well, I'm not complaining. I get back to the second Centurion, and at this point, I'm one shot. Yeah, rushing isn't the best strat in this game, but it didn't matter anyway because I managed to slip up one more time from uppercuts and grabbed one of the falling platforms by the ledge, sending me to my doom yet again. I come back through all of that bullshit, bam, whacked by a Centurion. I just have to stop rushing is all. It also doesn't help that there's no green ego pickups here. I come up to the falling plats yet again, and this time I show no fear, executing every boosted upcut with ease. We end things off right with the cremation of the final egg clusters and some environmental destruction creating us a walkway. Back to crew, he wants us to pick up some money off the literal street, a mission that, you guessed it, requires a vehicle because it yet again is on a strict ass timer. I fail because of one small mistake and call it a day for the stream. But I'm right back at it, and this time I fail because the guards destroy my vehicle and I don't want to do another carjacking, so I punch my way to the next money bag, but to no avail. I have a much better go around this time and beat the mission with ease. No jumping required. I head back up to Torn and he sends me to the pumping station to assist Ashland for some reason. I have a hard time getting on this rotating shit, but I make it up eventually, and I swear it's the most unpredictable spots that cause a problem. I immediately see that the platforms are high as shit and not exactly the most optimal way up, so I hop off and go the back way. I get up top and clear a few bads before the Ashland interaction. Who would have thought there would be an ambush? There are quite a few of them here and they toast my ass real good, but I manage. The only obstacles came before the actual mission, so nothing truly noteworthy. I am given the yellow sector pass though, so now we can access more of the map. We speak with the Oracle Onin and her interpreter Pecker, and we're tasked with acquiring artifacts. I make it to the temple and there are definitely some interesting platforming challenges. Right at the beginning they hit you with the flipping platforming bullshit. It's just a taste here, but it can get rather annoying. I come upon the Dark Eco box puzzle that I remember getting one of my relatives to do for me when I was a young warthog. Instead of relatives, I totally do it myself and don't look at a guide to cut out the trial and error. I take 2 steps and run into a fucking metal rhino. He's no match for me, however, and I continue to get my prize, the sexual innuendo incarnate. I keep it moving down the next path and another ram head smashes in to greet me, but his intimidation tactics scare me not. Down goes the beast. There's actually 0 chance for relief because we get to face off against the rock slide. This part is typically pretty annoying, but not a pain in the ass. But without jumping, oh boy. The rocks fall randomly and don't have a set path because they are physics based. Some of the only physics-based objects in the game that can hurt you. This leads to massive bullshit because the rocks can bounce off one another and the environment, then into you. And yes, that includes in midair. I found myself just waiting for opportunity to move, and as soon as I would, crazy damage. But through all of the pain, I pulled myself to the end with a single point remaining. I uppercut across some of the aforementioned flipping platforms and it's smooth sailing from there. Moving forward, I disregard my critical condition and get ready to retrieve the final artifact. There's a small pond to uppercut across and I fumble. I thought I was soft locked, but the fluctuations in the water level gave me the slightest amount of time to pull an uppercut out of my ass. A pit awaits me and so does an old friend. Boom. A ram head emerges from yet another wall. You know the drill. Bait, shoot, dead. Coming out of the pit, a Centurion makes an attempt on my life, but I'm not having it. I recover a bit of health and activate some more precursor shit, and when I get to the other side, some little metal bastards spring from the ground. I reacted quick enough not to be hit, but that coulda went sour in a heartbeat. An additional pond has to be crossed, albeit more lenient with precursor podiums levitating up and down. More metal heads emerge, but only leave a path of their skulls. A cheeky Centurion lurks in the background, but fails to threaten me as I strike him down as well. I regain the majority of my health back, and I'm hoping that there's no obstacle that impacts this flow I got going on here. I climb one more set of precursor metal, cross one more stream of water, and finally collect the final artifact. Up until now, there have been a few difficulty spikes, but nothing that would completely stop the run. That was until we met up with our old friend Kira, and she decided to let us use the jet board. Remember, the tutorial makes sure that we absolutely must jump, so I start to play around with a few of the more broken features of the game. Well, you see, back in the day, games were made with code, duct tape, and a prayer uttered while half asleep. So you can just do things like this. Through this path, you can make your way to the stadium, but there's a teeny tiny problem. The stage won't be loaded, but fear not. Just come all the way to the stadium entrance, drop your zoomer off, and travel some distance to load in the area. Don't go too far out where the vehicle will deload. Now we can drive the zoomer into the stadium, grab the zoomer, and make our getaway. I'm able to leave with the jet board, but the problem arises that the game doesn't register that the mission is complete. The real mission in the stadium is to complete the stunt course minigame, but it's only accessible after the tutorial, naturally. Nothing works here. I try following the simulated jump, bump off ledges and rails, using ramps and even the half pipe, but no luck. Reluctantly, I have no other choice than to make the dreaded X press. But oh no, the game doesn't think that's enough dirt in my eye. Bam! Crouch jump. Wait, you thought it was over? Bang! Boost jump. 3 consecutively. Just like that. This one particularly bothered me because it seems to actually be linked to progression. I was already in the stunt area when I started the tutorial and had to figure out the hard way that Kira wants you to jump to a specific spot. You're intended to boost jump up top to the light pillar, but I guess Kira's picky with what she considers execution, and I just uppercut to the top, so only 2 of them were needed. Neither of them gave me an advantage in the game and only served to make this look like a waste of time, but I will press onward. The bullshit keeps flowing though, so once I get that dilemma handled, I have to do tricks on the jet board, which at first is just grinding, but followed up by needing to flip. Luckily for me, I have ways to get myself airborne without jumping and can still pull off my tricks. So she cares if I press X on the first 2, but not these flipping ones? What kind of sick bullshit are you playing at, Kira? After those obstacles, Kira prompts us to complete the stunt challenge, which at first I wonder if there's enough time, but then I remember I can get some pretty good air using the half pipe and score half there, and get the rest via collectible, flips, grinding, etc. Surprisingly, no jumping was necessary, since performing tricks is pretty lenient. We let Kira know we beat the stadium challenge, even though she was right there and even congratulated us. Annoyed by this, she sends us off with info on how to power an old elevator to the Baron's palace. We hit up our boy Vin, and he shows us how to activate it.
but I needed to destroy security turrets around the city. So of course, I run, well punch, around the map until I inevitably get gunned down. I come through again, attempt number 2. I do worse. You see, I thought I was being overly clever by taking out the Crimson Guard Zoomers to deny them aerial dominance. However, juggling both the Zoomers and the guards on foot isn't the easiest task. The Zoomers are particularly deadly due to their ability to fire from afar and avoid hitting an unlucky target more often from above. A third go has a similar outcome. I stand my ground, but shots are constantly incoming from different directions. I decide that it would be best if I take the first half of the mission on foot and the second half in the city on Zoomer. Even with the extra protection, I still almost die, but I'm still able to finish the mission. I think it's possible without the Zoomer, but I'm also thinking that would take an unnecessary amount of rage. We head straight to the elevator of the Baron's palace with no hesitation. This stage is pretty interesting. Right at the start, there are a couple of jumps to be made, nothing a few uppercuts can't manage. Then we get to the good part. There are these electrified floor panels across the main walkway, and you're intended to come down to the side and swing on some poles. We're not swinging on some poles. Instead, we will be deliberately giving ourselves a controlled shock in order to manipulate our iframes. We have a limited time before we take damage again and are sent hurling back to the safe spot, but it's enough to walk to the end and slide on into our destination. Shortly after, I spot a turret that springs to life and startles me, causing me to punch off a ledge, womp womp, run it back. I make it back, kill the turret boy, and underestimate the speed of these spinning boxes. Who the fuck uses this bridge? Well, I guess they did say this was an elevator and hasn't been used in forever, implying the same for this bridge. But fuck that, who was walking on it before? Tangent aside, I make my way back to the rotating boxes, nail it, and what's at the end of that last shit? A turret waiting to cook my ass. Be quick, he can for sure melt you or just get good and dodge. We're given a break on the violence and now have to worry about falling to our death. You see, the genius who built this shit thought it would be a wise decision to make the floor hanging tens of thousands of feet above the ground collapsible. But what the creator didn't account for was a mastermind. Boom, roll. Now the fun part, another pole, but this one looks rather troublesome. Familiar even. It's in the way of where we need to go, but I still have to try and bypass it. I remember a similar pole back at the tank mission, and I wonder if the same boosted uppercut can be performed, and yes, it can. I was for sure that shit wouldn't work. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Take your shot. I jubilate too early and get got by an accidental boosted uppercut of all things. Terrific. I surpassed the pole my first try, but this is indeed a tricky maneuver. It's so easy to latch onto the pole or just not get enough height altogether. It's something you just have to feel, you know? I line it up, boom, I'm up there. This was the last major obstacle here, as the final section is pretty much a culmination of what was past. Except the rotating turbo cannons. I almost fumble, but I pull through. We catch the Baron talking to the enemy, but not just any enemy, the literal boss of them. That's wild. So we move around, but before getting too far, the Baron gets a hold of us and wants a piece of our jackass. Our face off with the Baron is pretty straightforward. Dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot. He has a shield and is only vulnerable after firing. He can recharge the shield, but it depletes, which gives you time to refill your ammo. My first attempt was awful to say the least, and I fucking slip off this ledge after I beat the first phase. Well, at least I get a health refill. Oh yeah, there's only one box with health in it, and it's at the last phase, so just don't get hit. Once you knock a third of his health down, he smashes his health regen barrier and opens your path to phase 2. Of course, it's connected by platforming, so you just gotta be careful. Phase 2 is more easygoing in my opinion. He fires a salvo of missiles that land at your previous location, so you have to keep moving. What I do is get a good distance away from him, and when he starts blowing, I walk towards him as I shoot. Remember, he's only vulnerable while shooting, so this feels like the right fit. His shit gets fucked up again, which removes his final shield regen barrier and opens up the path to phase 3. You would think the final phase would put phase 1 and 2 together, right? Nope. This time, he forgoes the shield and spams homing flame twisters while trying to ram you. You very quickly could be sent back to phase 1 if you don't space this final encounter out. The twisters eventually explode, so it's best to shoot at him from damn near the other side of the map. That way you don't get caught in a twister ram combo. I pop Praxis out the sky and he starts monologuing in his Dr. Eggman ass saucer. This is another mission that requires a zoomer. I get a tanky one and make sure my fellow underground members get to their destinations safely. Nothing too notable here. Upon our return, Torn tasks us with protecting a site from metalheads in Dead Town. The Chad even gives us a new mod, the Vulcan Fury. There's much more platforming to be done here, but nothing too difficult. It's wise that we still take care, as we can get shot into the swamp and guarantee our demise. A new metalhead, the Sling Blaster, drops in and is rather annoying. Anytime it's hit, it retaliates with a Dark Eco projectile. Luckily, Torn gave us a new toy and allows us to stun lock them, preventing the counter. We keep it going, and another newbie wants to play, the Rapid Gunner. He positioned himself in a way that lets me creep behind these pillars and pick them off. There are more of them, and they improve their formation just a bit. A few grunts welcome death avidly, but in the background, our gunner guys are gunning for me. The farthest one in the back particularly gives me the business for underestimating him, but I'm able to finish the job. Another group of cryptids meet their maker, and I come upon the home stretch. I'm at 1 HP, and there are 2 slinger bitches with a good distance standing between us. They like to fire in close intervals together, and it's only hyperbolized with their counterattack. I thought it would be too dangerous to walk them down with the Vulcan Fury and opt to blast them from afar, taking pot shots. I take out one, and while I'm finishing the second, he starts to run up. This will seal his fate, as he thought I was a bitch, but a bitch I was not. Blow, bam, done. We successfully defend the site, but we come to the realization that this area is part of Jak 1, specifically Samos' hut. There's a lot to unravel there, but we gotta keep it moving. We come back, and right after that discovery, we meet the leader of the underground, who turns out to be Earth Daddy Samos. Well, kinda. He's younger somehow, but there's no time to waste. We head to the Haven Forest to take down some annoying pests. The Metal Scouts are very agile, so much that Jak can't get a shot in. Speed accompanies their agility, so I believe it's better to use the jet board, but I still don't jump. I catch one coming down, and the game plays an animation of Jak leaping on and off the metalhead creature. I can't control this, but it doesn't help me either. Just another one of those visual flares. I travel deeper into the forest to find my next prey. I find him flying in my direction, in which he averts from. Yeah, if you ride in front of them, they'll change directions, so I need to catch this bastard with occasional grinding. With enough time, I build up speed to take his flying ass down. I continue to his brother, and he falls just the same. This next scout was put here to make you question this bullshit. This bitch ass scout likes flying in all different fucking directions, and to put the diarrhea on the shit cake, he flies over spots that require jumping. So I have to hope that he flies in a pattern that allows me to take him down. The biggest problem here is that I need to build up enough speed to end him to begin with. All of these variables may be annoying as fuck to deal with, but I persevere and catch this flying bug bitch. My final target is back near the beginning. I suppose I missed him? He too has an awkward flight path, passing over gaps and grindable branches.
He gives you a small window to catch up with him, so I have to make sure I can get enough speed once more to smack down my final enemy. We immediately take care of another one of the Shadow's orders by escorting the lost kid to Vin's place. Nothing in this mission changes as it isn't necessary to jump, but it is mandatory to use a vehicle. We race through the red sector and we find our way to Vin. As I head south to the city, I decide to take care of the beacons in the water canal. The difficulty here is moderate because situations that could be diffused via jumping are now much more deadly. Bumping into a mine is almost certain to damage you. Too much damage and yeah. So don't do that. I'm bad, so I come harder. I regroup with crew and I'm tasked with helping free forced labor workers so that they can be put back to forced labor? Ethics aside, it's not only a favor for crew, but an associate of his named Bruder. I have to free the lurkers and drive them over to him. I do relatively badly and decide to let myself die. I had a mishap where one of the lurkers didn't want to mount my zoomer, allowing me to accumulate a good amount of damage, which prompted me to get off and let nature run its course. Again, I make my rounds and I'm more skillful with my play. I ran into a curious situation where I had 2 lurkers freed and ready to be transported. I tried to save time by taking both, but the game doesn't seem to include that functionality, so the regular way it is. I finished the normal way, with all sorts of marksmen involved all of a sudden, but we made it. I get another gift from crew, and as I make my way to this mission, the game crashes. I get to the dig site, and the objective is to destroy the big ass drill tethers, which requires you to use the jetboard to grind on. They also want you to jump on these baby railings, but fuck that, we can just sideswipe them. There are these steam boost shits, but they don't shoot you into the air, but act more like mini elevators. Other than that, nothing too different about this one. This next one is interesting. I talked to our bud Vin and he wants us to close some eco wells, but the destruction devices that would be used were activated and now we're on a timer. That's not the best part. There are various areas that have to be traversed that require the forbidden technique. I start by just going right at it blind, but quickly got to a point that wouldn't be feasible with the normal route. There are 2 specific wells that have gaps, and this first one was giving me the blues. There's a boosted uppercut that needs to be done here, but the platform is moving and is farther than your average platform. It takes some effort, but I get to the other side and knock out the first well. The clock is ticking. I slide through and close the next 4 wells, 1 to go. The final well is naturally the farthest, and I had an ample amount of time until, you know what, just take a look. Despite that shit being out of my hands and basically in the fucking well, I still combust and have to redo the entire thing. If you take a closer look, I was like a literal frame away from the mission being completed. Cool. Even with the do-over, I make short work of what remains of the mission and take my win with a smile. Right after the previous mission, we're sent back through the portal to take care of some Red Baron bastards. Oh, not just by any old way, but by turret. We tackle the Baron's aerial forces head on and they obliterate me, of course. I go again and I scrape by the skin of my teeth. 1 hit point left. That first part is brutal. Yup, first part. I got 2 more to go because that was fun. They play out the same though, so nothing to see here. I go back to the sewer and I need to retrieve a key relic from the depths of the totally not boo-boo water. There really isn't anything too out of the ordinary here except for this part where I lose most of my health. No biggie, I'll just not get hit. I have to hop off the jetboard to get under these spinning drill things and then I die. This is Jak 2, remember? So no checkpoints. I run the whole mission again, and yet again, I find out I died right before the mission was complete. Anyways, we're done here. I have a few destinations in my mission log, but choose to help Ashlyn. There's a suspicious eco tanker bringing a supply of you know what. As Ashlyn tells us to fuck off, this son of a bitch crashes into the bazaar, and guess what? It's filled with metalheads. An ambush. This is pretty much the same as the first Ashlyn mission, only this time we're in the city. No uppercutting needed. I talked to Sig and he wants us to go out and find another one of those artifacts of Mar. The first part of this mission has us activating these buttons to elevate this log shit coming out of the ground, I guess. We need 5, so we get to it. I get the first button down, then these toe-biting bitches knock me into the lava for an instant death. But do not fret. For this rare occasion, the naughty programmers inserted a fucking checkpoint system. Jolly good show. I make it through the third part through this ground pounding part. Look at this shit. What exactly is this shit engineered to do? Anywho, I keep it moving and my dumb ass dip my toenail in lava. Mwah. OTK. The number of buttons remain the same, but I'm still put back at the start of the level, which can be good or bad depending on where you need to go. In this case, it's in my favor. I come over to the underlying dilemma, the pole blimp. I don't immediately address it and drop below to the next button. 2 more to go. I make my way to the start and see that I missed one around that area. This button is fixated next to a rather large gap. A gap that could be traversed by means of Shoryuken perhaps? Wrong. Either it's too wide or I suck too much donkey dong. Or both. 2 things can indeed be right. All of this to try to avoid the inevitable. I take the walk to the pole and make my swing. I jump off, so I decide to reset. Even though vaulting is a limited restriction, I don't deem it necessary to use here, so I opt to drop off. As I make my way back, I end up pressing the last button. I really thought it was on the other side, so it was a good thing that I unlocked myself. With full confidence that I'm done, I head to the blimp one last time, latch onto the pole facing backwards, and gracefully drop from it. Marvelous. I kill some metal bitches, climb the wood platform, and head out. It's what I would say if it was over. I was under the impression for whatever reason that this was the end of the level. I couldn't be any more wrong. If you thought the other pole was a problem, watch this shit. First, we need to punch uppercut over some sinking logs, followed by not 1 pole blimp, but fucking 2. Okay, shouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, if you grab the first pole facing forward like you're supposed to do, you make it much more difficult to drop to your destination. So you want to time the pole and your uppercut just right so that Jak grabs it backwards. Now you can drop with confidence on the other side. This second pole is an absolute nightmare. The same tactics from the aforementioned poles are needed to be utilized here, but it is supremely precise. I tried a multitude of times with different grabbing times, releases, and even started adding a kick to the drop. Nothing was working, but you can just feel that it's possible. Then the planets align, and the sun's orientation created a 90-degree angle, manifesting a surge of solar energy to burst through me and give me the gamer skill to conquer this obstacle. I revealed a final hurdle. A test of vertical and horizontal propulsion. At first, I can't manage to get high enough for the ledge, but quickly realized this wood railing to the side can be utilized to my advantage. Although there's a feasible way that I can tell, I continue to fail, falling below and occasionally taking damage, to the point I get hit enough to fucking die. Now this stage has been generous with checkpoints, but not this one. Oh no. Back to the lava logs, I say. I've been on this short ass stage for an hour at this point, but luckily the sun rays were still coursing through my veins and I could still harness it to pull off another drop. I'm at the end now, so all that's needed is to boost uppercut to this platform and we're golden. Another artifact retrieved. We talk to Torn and we get info on some upgrades for the guards. We decide it's best to decommission these weapons. We need to use zoomers to catch the Hellcats and we gun them down. Same mission with no interesting change. The class races are just that, races. There are opportunities to use the zoomers jump, but for obvious reasons, we'll avoid that. No real change here other than I can't use the shortcut. I am yet again given orders to destroy the dark dangers of nature in the forest. Love the music, so revisiting for an extended amount of time doesn't bother me in the slightest. They bring out the A-team for this effort. Cloakers and spiders are our enemies this time around, and they won't shy away from blowing a hole in your ass. Did I mention they have camouflage? I guess it's in the name, right? Cloaker. They do a damn good job at hiding themselves, but they can't hide that bitch ass skull gem. Well, unless you shoot and kill me from off screen, causing me to start back at 30 enemies with low ammo refills. I play more strategically the next time around, and one by one, they fall to my vengeful carnage. Now we've made it to one of the most notorious missions in the game. I grab the last artifact that's just sitting in the water slums for no particular reason and proceed to engage an onslaught of the KG. I make it halfway and I'm dwindled down to my death. I was very brash with that attempt and slaughtered them all in my next run. Not sure why this mission is considered one of the hardest, but alrighty. I make my way back to Onin with all the artifact pieces. I play her little game and receive the completed Seal of Mar. Oh yeah, nothing notable, it's just matching the buttons on screen. I need to take the Seal of Mar to the mountain's pass to reveal the location of Mar's tomb, where the rumored precursor stone resides, an ancient relic said to contain an unborn precursor. I'm confident in finishing this mission because it's not really a mission, but come up to this rather bullshit obstacle. All you have to do is hop on a jet board, grind on these rails, and you're done, right? False. You see, the center of these rails have this big ass light, and you're expected to use the cross button to jump to the next one, and the next one. I spent some time trying to figure out if this is even doable, but then a spark of brilliance. When I dismount the jet board, I can still shift Jak's direction, so I make sure I turn towards the next rail as if I'm ready to grind again. Since the precursor pipes are considered flat ground, I'm able to stand for a brief second, and in that second, I must remount the jet board and then grind on the rail. Not once, but twice. Yippee! This, of course, isn't the most simplistic thing, or maybe it's just another skill issue, but I nailed that shit in a timely manner, less than 5 minutes. We take the mountain pass relics and we use them to power a laser that reveals Mar's tomb. This really isn't a mission, to be honest, like I said before, but there was a section that gave me the Jak 2 blues. Here we are, just a little over the halfway point, Mar's tomb. This stage is basically Golem Maya's Citadel, but for Jak 2. There are 2 paths, 2 trials of manhood, each with their own challenges to conquer to inevitably activate a button at the end. Now these tests can be more annoying than difficult, but that's not what we need to address. So the gauntlets may not have launch pads like Golem Maya's, but they indeed have these. I need to weigh my options, so I go to the right side and start grinding out ideas. First, I try to approach the side where these statues are aligned. You're able to finagle your way to the top of them by spin kicking against this corner. You can also fall into the statues, which I thought was a breakthrough, but as far as I can tell, nada. Even though we're in the statue, a wall still resides. You know, the one they're up against. I try a bit longer, but the efforts are futile. I move my efforts to the water. I think for a second that maybe I can damage boost to the top, but I guess Jak's hitbox doesn't rise the same height as his character model, so I end up sliding off back into the pool. There are very limited options when water is involved, and upon my death, I choose to examine the other side. I shift over to the left path, and right off rip, we got some bullshit. Over a floor of dark eco, we have to punch uppercut some pillars that have alternating spike traps springing from them every few seconds. This is all fine and dandy once you get the timing, but up at the top, my arch nemesis rears his ugly head once more. Poles. Okay, let's take a step back and get our bearings. So the right side has water that needs to be jumped out of, and the left has poles. I'm a bit more accepting about the poles, but I can't allow them to discourage me. In fact, I've got a bit of a surprise of my own. I come out of the path to get ready. Now the goal is to uppercut onto this tiny ass ledge, which elevates you. With the added height, We must punch alongside the wall, which in turn will cause Jak to slide upwards. Then we proceed with the uppercut and a spin kick immediately after, and we use the kick to give us more aerial control. We shift Jak over to the center of this squarish architecture. We should land up there, and before landing, I make sure to hold crouch. You're supposed to jump here, but fuck that. We swap out the jump for an uppercut, naturally. As you come up, we want to spin kick into this rectangle shit directly in front of us and make sure not to kick too early or we'll slide out like White Castle on a Friday night. If done correctly, you should slowly slide upward and eventually, boop, you'll be in the map. Now while being literally inside the tomb, we have to make our way back to the left path. Once we get used to the fucked up camera, we come to the door but not cross it because that would mean certain death. Instead, we want the door to activate and open, where thereafter we follow a path to the left lined with Dark Ego. This is where my first attempt ends. Sadly, I get too close to the Dark Ego and yeah. I go back to the right to see if there's anything else I can do, and no. The area won't change just because I leave for 40 minutes. So I go back to grinding the out of bounds shit for 20 minutes. At this point, it's been nearly an hour of trying to get back into the wall itself, but I start to get the hang of it. I open the door, come down a Dark Eco path, and prepare for the most crucial part. Now I know I died from Dark Eco previously, but in order to pull this off, we must dive into a specific patch of Eco. Yes, dive into the insta-death pond. As you can see, Jak is practically submerged in water. Well, this isn't the only area the water is located. You see, diving into this random ass area of Dark Eco will allow you to dive into it. I presume that Dark Eco uses the same properties as water, except it has an added kill box. Since we're all the way out here, the naughty devs rightfully assumed that no one would ever get to this random ass spot, let alone try to jump in said spot, but that's just speculation. That was the hard part. Now we follow the ledge of Eco a bit farther into the fluid and perform a punching uppercut into a dive. The uppercut is to put us over the spider egg room, and dive is to dive into the area. You will take fall damage, but this is good. Without explaining all the inner workings of this shit too much, there are multiple invincibility states. Getting damage here triggers an alternate variation. With this in mind, head to the spider egg as usual, but when the cutscene of Daxter ends, book it to the back left corner of the egg and voila, no Daxter chase. But there's a problem here. I wonder if you can spot it. I need to get Jak back, and it's actually quite simple. Hopefully all of the spiders are still alive. I killed 3 out of the 4 like a moron, but it's still doable. Come over to the corner and let it bite you. What's supposed to happen is I jump as the spider is attacking me so I can revert back to Jak. Keyword being jump. Without the leap, you can't change back. Or can we? I know we're supposed to jump to change back, but what if I told you, fuck that? You see, Daxter is so small that the spider's lunge attack can slide underneath him, which will for a fraction of a second leave him airborne. This tiny window is enough to change us back. I scope around and try to see if there's an alternative to proceed, and I have to sadly take some liberties. After the chase skip, you have to solidify it by going to the spiderweb trampoline room. How, you say? By coming upstairs, riding the jetboard out of bounds, and performing a hover glitch to it. The hover glitch allows Jak to use jetboard tricks to stay suspended in the air, and as we know, doing tricks requires jumping or some way to get airborne. So in a perfect scenario, I would be able to activate the hover glitch without jumping, fling it to the tramp room, and knock out the Daxter chase. Even with this, there's a looming problem. You're supposed to go past the egg once Daxter initiates the chase. Well, I mean, in this case, it's different, but you know what I mean. Through this path is the button to complete this trial of manhood, but the room is littered with poles like its sister location. Something has to go through, and I opt to go with the poles. because vaulting from poles is better than outright taking a jump to try the glitch. Kira already forced me earlier, but I get to choose this time. I run through the room and activate the first beacon laser thing. Trial 1 is complete. I'm not left with too many options, so I make my way over to the right path, where the only way out of the water is to jump up to the ledge and pull yourself up. I really thought this would be a simple one to overcome, but we're severely limited. Other than jumping to grab these ledges, the trial plays out pretty much the same, though I did fall to some minor inconveniences. Our reward for the completion is supposed to be the precursor stone, but as we get into the room, the bitch ass Baron flies his Eggman ass in there, monologues, and proceeds to drill the stone. His boss battle this time is pretty easy. Praxis will shoot out bombs and we need to hit them back before they explode. Making sure your position is right is crucial because it's possible to send a bomb flying crooked. He does start breaking the floor on his third phase, but he's not an issue. We beat him, but he still escapes with the stone and locks up all our allies. Time to save our guys and girls from the death penalty. I die a couple times in the first room. That extra second that it takes to uppercut and dive instead of jumping and diving is critical here. I just decide to clear the room and take it from there. There are more interesting parts of this stage, but nothing that requires jumping. We talk to Crew and he wants us to go back to the sewers and retrieve yet another artifact, but this time we're not alone. Give it up for the escort mission. This mission plays out mostly the same until you come up against these fucking laser bitches. 3 hose heads block off the path by swinging their lasers to and fro, and I need to end them. Of course, the first time around, I wasn't exactly sure how to efficiently tackle this without jumping, so I die. Womp womp. Bonus time, this is Jak 2, so where do you think I'll respawn? Is that your final answer? Well, if you chose 2, you're correct. 3 works too. We make it back to the laser trio and I allow myself to take too much damage. I do take them down, but now I'm one shot, and as I'm trying to take down the next trio, yes, next trio. Yep, back to the beginning. It's all just practice for the real run, I promise. Slap some baddies, trio lasers, boom, killed all 6. I still take a substantial amount of damage, but I press on. I have 1 hit point left before I'm done for, but that doesn't stop me from slaying the infested area until one gets too close and gets a nibble off. Right at the end too, but it matters not. We run it again. I get to the double trouble section and clear their asses out. I don't get hit as much and the interaction is smooth for the most part. I stand my ground once more, but with Recluse. I try to stay back as much as I can to lure the hose heads to their demise. One gets smart here and tries firing his laser, which I have to deal with, or it could single-handedly knock off one of our squad mates. This allows another metal head to drop behind and I miss my shot on him and take damage. I'm so low I could step the wrong way and die. I'm firing on all cylinders here, no pun intended, and they keep the pressure up until the bitter end. I get rid of the remaining pests and finish the mission with a shoestring of vitality. Jumping would have worked wonders here, as you can see. I talk to the underground and I'm informed that blast bots have been spotted en route to the hideout. We need to handle them before they get to the underground hideout, or... Eager to scrap some crimson metal, I head right in, only to realize I haven't recovered any health after the sewers and I'm electrocuted. I actually died to a guard here, but it happens so quick that it looks like a bot got me. Cool. They give you a sense of urgency when you see that they're scattered far apart from each other, but they all have to come to the same area. A zoomer could be used, but it's unnecessary. By the time I got to the final spider, he was near the hideout, but I was already near. Explode that bitch and we're golden. We need to beat the class 2 in order to qualify for the big race, but Kira gets to talking shit and Jak is all like, fuck this shit. Now it's up to Daxter. This is similar to the previous. Shortcuts can only be used via jumping, so we're riding this one out legit again. I fumbled the first go around to overly aggressive racers you know I get my run back and smoke the competition. Immediately after the Class 2, I had the crew who bet against us and wants us to throw the final race. All that meat and none of it is a part of his brain. Jak essentially says fuck that dumbass gesture, and as the interaction transpires, that whiny bitch Arrow pops up and challenges us to race through the city. We have to navigate through these rings to the end of the race. Missing a single ring will result in a failure. I make one too many slip-ups and meet him at the end. Loser. This race usually isn't a big deal, but remember, we're not jumping, and the vehicle hop actually has some utility that we must forsaken. You can use the zoomer hop to make sharper turns, as well as push you in a suitable direction for the situation while turning. But we gotta do it the good old-fashioned way, without race tech. After a couple of uneasy attempts, I slam Arrow's arrogant ass and leave him in the dust. The hopping makes it so much easier, but we made it. After all of that excitement, I go and talk to good old Van, and he sends me to the strip mines yet again. We're tasked with destroying some metalhead eggs, so naturally we have to traverse a damn death course. I spent some time trying to make it through said death course and come up to yet another roadblock. We're expected to grind on this rail and jump to the next one. After becoming stagnant, I try my head in another mission. Maybe with fresh eyes, I'll be able to see a path. I enter Dead Town, and in this mission, we are tasked with retrieving a life seed from Samos's hut. This is what we came to defend after we were awarded the Vulcan Fury. We need to break our way through a multitude of architectural structures with none other than a Titan suit. After searching the premises, I couldn't find a way to complete the mission without the suit and without jumping, so I continue with the rocket propulsion. The Titan suit is a vehicle, so this is as valid as a zoomer hop, except zoomer hops are almost never necessary. This stage played as normal, nothing notable here. Okay, so here's where the time travel shenanigans are really in your face. The seed we just got was a seed planted by Sandover Village Samos before we came to the future. We now have to take said seed to the forest with the Shadow, aka Haven City Samos, so that he gains the power to eventually become Sandover Samos. I like Daxter's quip about how we're the reason he became a sage. Anywho, all we do is defend Samos, kinda like defending Sig, only Samos is passive and a glutton for punishment. Nothing to really comment on. Instead of following that up, we go talk to Bruder and do this lurker mission again. This is for sure padding, or maybe they wanted to give Bruder more spotlight? I don't know, I have to transport them with a zoomer. My very last one got stuck, so I had to totally not abuse him, but that was the only thing that really happened. I inevitably returned to the strip mines to finish the deed. I try shortly to get past the first rail with alternate paths, but say fuck it and try to grind, and to my surprise, the railing does not split here, so I can proceed. Better to discover it now than later, I suppose, but 2 steps later, more damn rails. I thought I was being smart by using this tree and wall to climb the wall, but the naughty devs put a fucking invisible wall here, so your height stops. Another moment arises where I just grind the rail with reckless abandon, and just like the last time, it works for me. If you think that's gonna be a running thing, you are sadly mistaken. I'm sadly mistaken. This gap is annoying than a bitch, and a difficulty spike that I didn't see coming. I want you to jump into grinding on the jetboard, but that jumping part has got to go. So we find this pole right here, and we'll be using this for height. We want to punch uppercut to the rail, and as we're coming down, want to mount the jetboard to initiate grinding. The input window is already precise, but we also have to get enough distance, align with the railing, and hope that he doesn't just bounce off for no reason. Luckily, I get the stars to align in a timely manner and proceed, but boy does it get worse. I cross this half pipe and I'm greeted with some more bullshit. Now we have this moving platform that leads to 3 identical pipes. So glad the devs liked this idea so much that they put it a third time. I try my luck and fall the first time, and to my surprise, we get one of those rare ass checkpoints. A super clutch one at that. I spawned right in front of it, so I knocked this out quickly. That literally doesn't matter because the rails are done playing games. Right after that, we're supposed to grind, jump, then grind again. There are no platforms near the second rail to possibly boost over to, and this sits over a wide gap. I noticed pipes on either side of the starting position, but I couldn't get him to stand on them. Even if I could, they aren't close enough to rail 2 to make a difference. Instead of trying to stand on those, why don't I try and stand on the rail? I know earlier I said you can't walk on these, but you have to remember, these older games are made with spit and polish. Long story short, if I directly walk on them, I'll slip off. But if I land on them from, say, an uppercut, I get the slimmest fraction of a second to take another action while standing. After 10 minutes, I see a glimpse of it actually working, and not too long after, I get the uppercut off and get the jet board out, but I didn't get enough distance. We hit the half-hour mark, and I'm just getting cheated at this point. I mean, look at this shit. This just shows me it's 100% doable, just under an extreme set of strict circumstances. I start to really feel how to perform the sequence. I start to become one with Jak. With this newfound fusion, we take ourselves up and over that bitch-ass rail and grind on that shit like a bad Friday night decision. Just like the last victory, we're presented with another set of obstacles, which I'm positively certain can't be done. So I just don't. Finally, a wall that lets you scale it, and in the most convenient area at that. Sure, it would have been nice to skip those other parts, but this has to be skipped, so I'll take it. This is the final part, and all you need to do is ride the jet board into the hanging crate. Even though they want you to jump onto it, you don't have to. What a ride. Time to destroy some more barren shit. This is another unnecessary Titan suit mission. The Titan boost is allowed, so I'll again do my best to stay grounded. As soon as you break down this wall, you're expected to boost over it. I'm just not doing that shit. Instead, let's just walk outside of the map. If you come over to this specific part of it, you can fall down and pass that entire first section, which may or may not be a pain in the ass without jumping. Oh yeah, make sure you stay near the top of the slope when proceeding, or the map just won't load at all. After some deaths and boosts, I make it to the control room and, well, I destroy the controls, which naturally initiates a self-destruct sequence. Of course, you have to run back through the level that we skipped for the most part. It actually is doable without jumping, but with my luck, I get to witness shit like this. Once that's settled, we get ready for our final race, the Class 3 race. Our prize will be access to the Baron's Palace. Our rival is Arrow, and he's come to race us one last time. Despite being the grand champion, Arrow goes down with ease, and that's about it. Nothing to talk about here. Now with clearance, we can get into the Praxis Manor, and let me tell you, I wish we didn't. I know there have been some awful stages, but this one sits at the top of the pyramid. For starters, we have poles right at the beginning, followed by falling platforms. Make your way across the second set of plats and avoid this random ass, fat ass gun on the left. There will be 6 kgs situated directly across the room, waiting to strike. Taking them out swiftly from afar is advised. Simple enough, right? Well, now let me introduce the difficulty. Once this window is shattered, you have to grind with the jet board and are nudged towards doing that X action. The key here is to dismount once Jak is onto a certain section of the railing so that he boosts off in the direction we need. This took an embarrassing amount of time to get the hang of, and even then I couldn't guarantee it. Major obstacle 1 down. Moving forward are 3 more dropping platforms, and right afterwards another gun. But the next part was teetering on impossible. There are multiple separated rails that need to be grinded on to get to the other side. Naturally, they want you to jump to the next rail mid-grind, and naturally, we rebel. So the most consistent way of crossing this path is to punch uppercut to this 3rd rail from the right, spin kicking and mounting the jetboard mid-air. You grind when you hit the rail, but you need to let go for the slightest of seconds in order to veer over to the next one and start grinding on that one too. The problem is, when you jetboard after the spin kick, Jak will sometimes spin uncontrollably during the grind, which will make the next transition difficult if not impossible. Once you've gotten onto the 2nd rail and begun to grind, you're met with a gap that can only be closed with a dismount. All that other shit sucks, but this next part is the real hope killer. So at the end of this 2nd rail, a dismount must be performed, and as you hit the next rail, you need to punch uppercut into a kick to pass it. You have to get close enough to the end of it to close the final gap, as well as land on the rail on a specific area to allow you to even take an action to begin with. You can slip off, the game can eat your input, fall short of the gap. It's just a culmination of pain. But once you pass that, the suffering is almost over. That's the huge difficulty spike. Take out some more kg and knock this saucer down. Now this shit is jank. Sometimes you grind on it and it just stops you abruptly. Other times you're unable to grind at all and fall to your death. But I figured I'd grind in the right direction so when I dismount, I don't go flying in the wrong direction. The home stretch is here. You come down and pass another gun while slamming some ass. The palace has a few more falling floors and 2 more at the very end to really fuck you if you fall. But once you pass those floors and enter that elevator, we can let out a sigh of relief. It's over. By far the most difficult stage in the game for this challenge. Oh yeah, did I mention if you fuck up at any point, it's back to the start. Not a single checkpoint. But this is Jak 2, so you knew that. The footage for this I did not stream. I had to do it on my own. I just could not sit on stream for hour upon hour upon hour trying to get this attempt to go green. But it will be on my Patreon. Following that monstrosity, we have to meet up with crew one last time. You see, this precursor stone that we've been after is valuable to everyone, but crew along with Praxis wants to use the bomb to blow it open, which will destroy the planet and possibly the universe? Not super sure, they just hammer the point home of everything.
Everything?
All things. Every single thing.
We're the hero, so the crew we go. He's at the top of this factory with his precious boom boom, so we have to make it to him first. Yay. We traverse a robot manufacturing facility that has acid pits. Seems like the perfect place to keep a bomb, right? There are areas that take some work to get past, but nothing could compare to the palace. Not by a long shot. We make it to the top of the tower and we face our old acquaintance. But there's no time for talk. We take down crew and we take care of one of Haven City's biggest issues. There isn't anything too amazing here, but the platforming was fun with the conveyors, I guess. Before crew croaked, he hit a special item in one of his machines because reasons. It's rather important, so we need to get it. It's just whack-a-mole, and this shit does not count, so don't even try it. Next, here we go with another Titan suit mission. This time, we get to go scuba diving, and since this is a PS2 water level, of course it has an oxygen gauge that depletes rapidly because fun. There are a few areas where we need to use the booster, but a couple we can just get over by punching. Only notable thing here is how shit the controls are and how much damage you take from these homing mines. Oh yeah, and the metal heads that this shit was not designed to handle. After the underwater tour, we meet up with Sig, who was sent on an unalive mission to receive one final artifact, but the area was swarming with metalheads. This wouldn't be such a big problem if it weren't for...
Shooting this is only gonna get it mad! Run!
Yeah, we get to be in another chase sequence, reminiscent of the third mission with the tank. We have to outpace the centipede or risk being eaten, and littered throughout are death pits and moving platforms. There are 2 chases, and the second one is where the most annoyance can be found. The first one is a taste of the bullshit, but this one is a mouthful of it. We have to move through some lasers, which is tame, but then they throw this flipping precursor bullshit in there. Sig is ahead during these sequences, and for this one, he shoots the platform so he can jump onto it, but it almost immediately flips back. It looks like you have to be quick enough to hitch a ride with Sig, but I couldn't manage it. So we have to wait for it to flip, and then we can flip it back to progress. This only gives the centipede some distance on us and puts an even hotter fire under our feet. Once you get past this shit, you have to get over these shifting floors that protrude inwards and outwards. These are in the first chase, but are especially egregious here. If you're not fast enough, you'll miss the cycle and croak. Then we move to more flipping platforms that Sig also flips, leading into some more shocking shocks. I only made it to this electrified moving platform thrice, and only once did I pass it. Luckily for me though, it's the final obstacle for this dreaded underground city. We move ahead, Sig monologues, and lets the metal critter get the best of him. But we must keep it moving. After that mishap, we make our way to Kira's to transfer the Rift Rider to the Metalhead Nest. We're trying to get back to our time and need to get this there to use the Rift Key. Luckily, those shitty lurker missions paid off and Bruder comes to our aid, but we need to defend the balloon's ascent from Metalheaders. I let Big Green bite the dust on my first attempt and second attempt. I helped my allies to safety and they carried the rider to the nest. We'll meet them there. Nothing too crazy in this mission. This next one isn't really a mission, just a story revelation. So turns out the entire time, this old ass bitch Core was the Metalhead leader this entire time and had been playing both sides to get his hands on the precursor stone. Praxis is like, fuck that, and charges to his demise. Metal Core dismisses himself and the Baron reveals that he has the precursor stone right here, ready to be blown to the moon right before his last breath. We disarm the bomb and snag the stone. With everything in order, we head to the Metalhead Nest to finish this war. We're introduced to some Metalheads as we land in the Dark Creature's home, but soon after we find the gun, Mars Gun. We insert the stone and blaze a hole in the nest for us to enter. We battle our way deeper into the nest, which isn't too difficult. There's surprisingly low enemy variety here. I'm at the nest, and there are only like 3 Metalhead types. I guess everyone's out attacking the city. We push into the opening we made and get ready to end this madness. We meet Metal Core and he gives us the big revelation of the game. This boy that Core has been caring for is Jak. He was sent to the past where he's meant to grow up, where he eventually comes to the future and meets this confrontation. Yes, time loop shenanigans. Core shoots us and we engage in a final conflict. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this boss is considered difficult, but I just don't see it. Well, I get how it can get difficult if you die so much you run out of ammo, but other than that, just use all of Jak's equipment. I knock Core off his pedestal and knock him off his feet, where he proceeds to try and escape and fails. We send Samos back with the kid to complete the time loop, and we celebrate our victory the good old American way. Now we can answer the age-old question, can you beat Jak 2 without jumping? Well, it depends. Let's look at some Carfax. The Webster Dictionary definition of a jump states that jumping specifically is relegated to using your feet and legs to lift off the ground with the strength of your muscles. Vehicles don't have muscles, so they can't jump technically. But what about the jetboard? This is an interesting one. Well, Jak isn't actually the one causing the jump to happen. The jetboard has its own propulsion system, which is used to keep it hovering. This same system can be used to boost in the air or boost after a trick. If Jak was to do a jump on a jetboard, he would detach from the board itself, which you see he doesn't. But what about the poles? Again, jumping regards to using your legs, and vaulting poles is strictly his arms. But what do you think? Do these technicalities validate the run, or are they irrelevant? Let me know in the comments. I say, yes, this is possible. But if you can't accept that, it's a yes with 2 jetboard jumps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. I'll be continuing this series in the near future, so stay tuned. Deleted footage or footage not found in streams can be found on my Patreon as well as my script. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Saggi, and I'm also out.
After 2 successful entries into the franchise, a 3rd and final numbered installment will be introduced to create a beloved trilogy, Jak 3. Of course, just as his predecessors, Jak was meant to do jumps and flips to his objective. But what if we didn't? What's good? I'm Saggi, and today we're going to give this challenge a 3rd try. Can you beat Jak 3 without jumping? I'm not changing the rules too much, but there are clarifications to be made. The game still runs on the goal engine, so Jak isn't too different. With that being said, there will be no jumping, no double jump, no crouch jump, no roll jump. Now to the oddballs. These are limited actions that will only be used if 100% needed, but aren't necessarily considered jumps by Jak, which includes climbing ledges, vaulting poles, jetboard mounting, jetboard jumping, entering vehicles, and vehicle jumping. And naturally, there are moves that we can use for Jak's mobility, which are the uppercut, the punching uppercut, aerial spin kicks, the dive, and extended dive. With that out of the way, we prepare for the final challenge of the trio. Let's go. Right at the start, there's a ladder that needs to be climbed, and when you reach the top, Jak automatically jumps. We can't have that now, can we? At a glance, the situation looks grim, but using a bit of brain power sparks an idea. This dummy can be destroyed over here, but instead of enacting violence, uppercut atop its head and position yourself as far along its arm as possible. All that remains is to perform an extended uppercut off the aforementioned limb to the end of the stage. Well, it would be the end of the stage if we didn't have to collect these markers. From here, just play the level backwards and then we're done. This is the soonest any of the games in the series have thrown a jump our way, but by far is the easiest. Damus didn't like our little stunt, so he throws us to the wolves right after giving us the scatter gun. We blow some baddies back and become enraged by the evil within. This plays out the same other than me needing to uppercut onto these boxes occasionally. The first stage was blatantly a tutorial, but we'll be in tutorial hell for quite a bit. We leave the arena and are greeted by Cleaver, the self-proclaimed top dog of Spargus. Although abrasive, he gives us an opportunity to prove ourselves after watching our arena rumble. And by opportunity, I mean feeding his pet leaper. Tutorial 3. We rush down a couple animals that will fit nicely in the last airbender and proceed. No need to jump here, moving forward. Right near where we finished the previous mission, our next one awaits, albeit just a minigame. Not really a tutorial, but I guess it's showing players that minigames will be in the game as well.
We talk to some monks and activate this dark eco satellite. It sends a signal after the minigame and it explodes. Next mission. Our next destination is the desert. I like how in the previous mission, Cleaver tells us he'll let us take some of his wheels for a spin if Damus lets us leave the city, and 5 seconds later, we leave the city with no interaction with Damus. Anyways, we go through tutorial 4 and run into the inevitable. Press L1 to jump. That's it. That's all. They decided to put boxes all around to ensure you hop over. I try to flip myself over the barricade, launch off the sand dune, restarting the mission, but nothing. No way to bypass it. But that's not all, folks. Just like another mission that won't be named, bam, another jump is required. Vehicle hops are part of the limited list, so this is acceptable, but I still won't be using any jumps during the race. The mission plays the same. Let's proceed. We get 0 downtime after the race. As we enter the Spargus gates, Damus tells us to immediately go back out into the storm to collect artifacts. This is just a racing mission, except instead of driving in circles, it's an open field, and instead of a finish line, we're making our way to checkpoints. Nothing crazy. We do get a health upgrade though, which is neat.
Okay, this mission is some bullshit. Let me give some backstory. I played through the first few missions without jumping prior to recording just to see if the challenge fails instantly, and the car was the only outlier during this test. Nothing gave me trouble, and I even completed this jump list on my first try, but I did not record it. I assumed it would be just as easy, but for some damn reason, it's like I had a 1 in a million run and I couldn't replicate it. I gave this mission a 1 hour attempt, and not only could I not do it again, but it revealed the giga jank of this shit. When other racers jump and you're near them, you take damage. When they land near you, you take damage. The racers have collision and can push you all around, but are brick walls when it comes to you pushing them. That all would be fine and dandy if the rings weren't so broken. On more than one fucking occasion, I would literally just phase through a ring without it counting. So I'm like, okay, these are super precise. No, sometimes you'll barely touch the ring and it counts. And as I mentioned other times, you'll just go right through them and fail instantly. There was a moment where I didn't even touch one of the rings and it counted, but the ring immediately after I phased through it. Long story short, the source of me doing this jump list is, trust me bro. One time I went through a ring and the next one just didn't fucking spawn. This shit had me raging, not because of the jank funnily enough, but because I didn't capture the footage to prove it's possible. Fuck this shitty ass, animal abuse ass mission. After that nonsensical mess, I get to play a fun mission. There's no jumping, but you get to face some old adversaries, the metalheads. Only this time, this variation are fucking dinosaurs. We fill the final beast and are met with a familiar hologram, but we blow it off and keep it moving. As a reward, we are greeted with another new addition, weapon mods. This one is the wave concussor, which creates a ring around Jak depending on how long the trigger is held. But the more interesting trait is the fact that it propels Jak ever so slightly upward when fired, which also works in midair. I wonder if that will be useful later. Damus sends us back in the ring to beat some more ass. This isn't necessarily just for his amusement, but so Jak earns his citizenship in Spargus, as you do. 2 seconds after getting our first mod, we're given another. Yes, this is only the second time we've officially engaged in combat, and yes, we essentially have 4 weapons already. This game is absolutely front-loaded with variety. Speaking of variety, we head back into the desert with Cleaver to gather resources for the city on Damus's request. Yep, literally another fetch quest. All we have to do is get close to these rat bastards so Daxter can lead them to this cage shit. We were only told resource gathering, so I assume these will be eaten. Now you're supposed to jump over these cactus patches, but I just run around them. Nothing serious.
Our next venture is more busy work, where we have to go back into the Sea of Sand and bring stranded wastelanders to their safety, but it's a glorified escort mission. Matter of fact, it's just crazy taxing on Beacon Island, right up until the very last wastelander. The final Sparta citizen is lifeless, holding a dark eco crystal. Thus far, we've been collecting dark and light eco crystals for an unbeknownst reason for now. We're jump scared by a dark eco satellite, only this time it's fully functioning and presumed to be the killer. We take it down and keep it moving. After that excitement, we get to play yet another minigame. It reminds me of the turret section from the Jak 2 beta. We shoot things that appear, that's it. They really wanted to push the envelope with variety. It almost doesn't feel like Jak at times from all the not Jak stuff you do in the beginning. Yet another arena battle beckons us and we are given the Vulcan Fury mod. I killed a whopping 1 enemies with my previous rewarded mod and I'm getting another. Can you smell the power creep? We come upon our final enemy and turns out it's none other than Sig. He survived after all. We disgrace the arena rules and have a chat with Daddis. So Sig was in Haven City acting as a spy for Daddis, which is why he's here and not in Haven. For Sig's contributions, instead of punishing us, we're sent on our next mission. We're tasked with taking out some growing metalhead nests in this random mountain. We take the Gilla Stomper, a truck with a turret that auto fires. We get to this wall of metal eggs and Sig blasted, but that was not a Peacemaker shot. It's a generic rifle shot that happens to be blue. Anyway, we just shoot a bunch of structures and race a time. No need to jump. My next mission is to visit this far off temple, but it requires the Dune Hopper to leap over the gaps. I do try to find ways to possibly extend the upcut over, but I fail of course. I have to cross the gaps as usual. Inside the temple we are introduced to one of our old nemesis, poles and trampolines. I'm not too worried about the trampoline, but we get to introduce a much needed tool to our arsenal. While in the air, we can fire the wave concussor to get an extra boost while airborne. I utilize this technique to get past the trampoline. Soon after, poles greet us, but I avoid them by coming to this corner, punch uppercutting into a spin kick, followed by a concussor shot. Not far after, we come across more poles, but there's no way to get up without using both flag posts and climbing up. This is a very vertical stage, so without fail, more poles get in our way, all the way until the end. We go into the glider section and nothing changes. We enter the volcano and we encounter a leaper. Oh boy. We cross a couple gaps and reach a dead end where the leaper is needed. I hop on the leaper, not knowing the game sticks you on it permanently, even upon death. I restart and attempt to boost uppercut, but I can't reach past this geyser here. I proceed with the leaper and I'm forced up a ladder. And surprisingly enough, another Daxter section is up. This has us go through a small section where, yes, jumping is necessary, but considering it's Daxter, I'm not too bent about it. Right after, however, there's yet another obstacle that requires a high jump, but this time as Jak. Despite this, if you position yourself just right, you'll be able to super dive into a wave concussor shot, and if done correctly, a spin kick should give you enough height to reach the top. A couple steps later, boom, Daxter section with unavoidable jumping. I do appreciate how much Daxter has a part in things, even if it's phoned in. We get another dark power, invisibility, and we use it and just leave. End of level, what a ride. We end up back at the temple and use our dark invisibility to swing on some poles. It's possible to traverse without the poles, but I'm not good enough. We get introduced to Light Eco for the first time since Jak 1 and receive light regeneration. We return from the temple only to need to detour to a meeting with Ashland. We're ambushed and the mission starts. No jumping, just killing. Ashland's all like, come back to the city, and Jak is like, fuck them, they kicked me out. Before Ashland departs, she gives us the Seal of Mar.
This can be used back at the temple, the place we literally just came from. Anyway, we continue through a glorified jet board course, which forces us to jump a few times to collect these Tide energy pods. There was one that I thought might be a problem, but I just grab it by dismounting. We're granted another light power, the Flash Freeze, which slows down time. I have to use our new tech to cross the spinning pillars and can still make my way across using only punch uppercuts, with mild difficulty. We find Pecker and a precursor vehicle stationed at the entrance of this tunnel. We proceed to use the said tunnel to get back to Haven City. A lot of shooting, but no jumping. Before the city, we have to open a way, so we come through this giant ass mine shaft to locate a bomb. We find some leg armor right before this trailing mission shit. Now we escort the bomb down its tracks by shooting the tracks down for it to ride on. Light platforming sprinkled in here and there, so it doesn't require so much as a hop. We encounter Vigor, and he unleashes a giant fucking precursor robot on us. I work him a little and take him down. No jumping, so I'm rewarded with the arc wielder. We get to the city, but must take another route to get to Samus and company due to them being walled off. We go through some totally not annoying sewers and meet up with Torn. We defend the southern HQ from blast bots and it's close. The bots are moving quickly, but I still take all three of them down with minimal problem. We talk to Torn once more and are tasked with breaking through the KG's defenses and given a missile. I was concerned at first with this mission due to parts that may require jumping. There are ramps on the side of these islands that actually allow me to ride up them. It's not the easiest, but it definitely isn't the most difficult. I play the mission safe, but when I'm given a checkpoint, I feel relieved. It took 20 minutes of attempts, but I made it. I'm let off easy with a gun course following that. Nothing really to say, it plays as usual. Now we get to berate the KG forces and head in to take out some cannons. This mission has us do the dive to activate buttons, but no need to jump. Now we get to go through the funky ass sewers. There's some platforming here, but nothing that can't be taken care of with a few uppercuts. Immediately after the sewers, we transition into another mission where we must destroy these dark eco things that are infesting the city. There are some areas where they want me to jump on a jet board, but you can actually just go off the beaten path and just ignore it completely. Now, are these jumps? Nah, I'm just being propelled into the air. It took some work, but nothing unmanageable. We go from one infestation to another, but this time it's in the forest. This mission is relatively simple until I get to the final 5 plants. They put it in an area that wants you to jump. It definitely seems impossible due to the fact that the green eco needed to destroy them disappears when dismounting the jet board, so no boosted uppercut. With some precision and patience, you can make it across the gap. I get another breather with this next one, a smooth and sweet ass escort mission. Nothing noteworthy. Well, we get another gun upgrade, but yeah. We walk a couple steps and need to make a delivery. Of course, we're homed onto by rocket launching turrets to keep us on our toes, but no jumping necessary. 2 vehicle missions in a row. The KG robots and metalheads launch an attack on the port base, and we need to handle them. All guns blazing, but no jumping required. We're given another gun course, which pans out the same as the last one. Yet another mission that lacks platforming comes up. It's interesting to see just how many missions don't require movement, if any at all. We deliver the bomb and get our Peacemaker as reward. Another assault is launched on the HQ, but this time it's the main base. We make it back to the sewer and are finally presented with some more platforming. Sadly, it isn't enough to stop the run in any capacity. We arise from the filth and make our way to Vin's lab, where Daxter is transported into a not Pac-Man game. Moving on. After that, we get back to the wasteland to collect some artifacts. Just another vehicle mission. I talk to Daddis and we're tasked with defending the city from marauders. Boom, boom, next. We take the attack to the marauder base and chase down the remnants. We use the Dune Hopper here, but these are acceptable. Before going back to the city, we meet up with Sig to take care of some metalhead pests in a cave near the city. No platforming needed. You know the drill. Vehicle, no platforming. You don't even control Jak in this one. Yet again. Coming into the home stretch, we're taken back to the forest, and yet again, platforming rears its ugly head. All you have to do is activate these precursor statues and complete the ring challenges, and for the most part, it's relatively smooth. On the third statue, I start to get some pushback, but nothing too crazy. It's not until the final one where I begin to have the most problem, because of course the final one is the most annoying. It includes all these jank ass grinding parts, but the biggest obstacle is that it includes a jump. To bypass this, I found that you can come over to this tree and do a super dive to the top, then boom, another jump immediately afterwards though. If you're quick enough, you can do a punch uppercut across the gap, but wait, there's more. Another jump. This would be fine if I had the foresight of what was to come, but with each failed attempt, I gathered knowledge, and with some work and nerves of steel, I finished the final ring challenge right at the 1 hour mark. Up next is a mission that sees us taking down an enemy faction factory in a Hellcat cruiser, but do not fret, the platforming comes once that's completed. Walking about 3 steps into the factory, however, activates a Daxter section, which sadly includes a jump. A single jump where Jak could have just frozen time like in the previous missions. To make matters worse, you get to play as Jak right afterwards, so it's really close to spitting in my face specifically. Not long after, Daxter comes up yet again, and yet again a single jump is needed. It's all good though, because the third Daxter section doesn't need us to do one, so that's cool I guess. Don't know why they decided to jam-pack this specific mission with all these Daxter parts, but the lack of variety makes it feel tacked on. They thought it was such a great addition that they added a 4th section. We get a cool car driving section and get to go against our rival from the previous entry, Arrow. But he's somehow less likable in this one, and not in a good way. His battle isn't anything too crazy. Just dodge and knock these bombs into these holes, and it's over with. We make our way to the temple in the wasteland to defend it from Dark Maker spawns. With this visit comes the final light power, flight. As much as I want to pass this part without jumping, inevitably, the path to Scene leads to a leap. I refuse to make more than one, so I opt to use the flight glitch. The creatures begin to siege the city, and we make our way to Spargus City's defense turret to fend them off. Just another glorified minigame. We jump back to Haven City to destroy more Dark Maker shit, but yet again, it's just another one of those missions that doesn't require platforming. Directly after the forest, our consciousness is sent to the Dark Maker ship, and we control one of their droids. There are a couple jumps that need to be made in this section, but all are made with the robot. Next up, we defend cargo that Torn is carrying through the city to the Metalhead nest. This is an on-rails shooting section, so we don't even operate Jak. Sound familiar? Once we blow a hole in their nest, we travel deeper to finish the job. We run into a couple of roadblocks in this one. They're all popping up near the end of the game, tragically enough. There's an impossibly large gap here that forces me to use the flight power, but right after, these dark eco bridges show up to fill the gaps. What the fuck is that? Yet another instance of the game shitting on me for my specific challenge. Other than that, it's just a simple climb to the top to meet Errol. On the next level, we run into another light flight gap. Try as I must, I can't cross the chasm without the flight ability. And here again, not too long afterwards. Tisk tisk. I suppose they couldn't award a power and not have the player utilize it. We get a jetboard bit and it has us jump, but the jetboard jumps are in a mission. We go from on foot to in vehicle for the last section of the stage. We get a big story revelation and move on to the catacombs. Nothing worth mentioning on this part. This level is just a mad dash obstacle course, so of course the light flight is here once more, my new nemesis. Side note, the Dark Makers are trying to destroy Light Eco. Why are there even Light Eco vents in their headquarters?
We're at the home stretch and are thrusted into the desert with a vehicle. No jumping required. We climb to the top of the terraformer and finish off air roll. This challenge was indeed a roller coaster of events, but it's not what I expected. There are a lot more missions without Jak than I remember, and that's not to mention all of the time I spent in vehicles. This run had promise, but unfortunately there are quite a few areas in the game that give little to no options but to press the forbidden cross. Can you beat Jak 3 without jumping? Of all the games in the trilogy, this one is the most blatant no. Maybe some adjustments could be made to make a shift in the conclusion, but I don't think it's very likely. If you would like to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and don't forget the notification bell. If you'd like to support me, become a patron today. I appreciate all of you for watching. I'm Saggi and I'm also out.